Welcome back to yet another weekly sports update on the Derek Smith Spiel. I always like to clarify sports update so people don't get confused with the broader news or think this is a vlog. This is not a vlog. It's sports updates with the occasional interview. But like I mentioned earlier, this is a sports update starting off as always in the NFL. The Commanders' managing partner purchased a one-of-one Jaden Daniels rookie card for $500K. The card was graded a 9.5 out of 10, and originally the asking price was $2 million. Harris negotiated the price down and now plans to display the card at Commander Stadium, which I think is an awesome idea. I would think it's really cool if at each stadium, NFL, MLB, NHL, doesn't matter, if they had their own hallway of fame, like a franchise hallway of fame. So it's just players who were legends, maybe not in the Hall of Fame itself, but inducted to the team's Hall of Fame, had a number retired. If every team had a hallway like that, that would be pretty cool. And the Commanders displaying a one-of-one Jaden Daniels rookie card, I just really love that idea. Really love it. Jaden Daniels won Rookie of the Year last year and led his team to the NFC Championship. It looks like success for the Commanders will continue because of the team's returning players, their boosted O-line, and the addition of Deebo Samuel, who can be used in the backfield, out wide, or in the slot, a versatile weapon there. Aaron Rodgers announced that this year will likely be his last year in the NFL. Hence why the Steelers made a one-year deal with him. But the real question is, who cares? Aaron Rodgers has been just below. He's been mediocre, to say the least. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. Even as a Lions fan, I've got to admit that. He's a phenomenal player. He's fractions of the player he used to be in Green Bay. And his whole career has been a publicity stunt since he made it very clear that he wanted to leave Green Bay. And originally, I always hated, I was 10 years old, I always hated Aaron Rodgers because he beat the Lions. Then I started listening to interviews and just seeing what the last 4 years of his career looked like. And now I have a reason to hate him. Not just like a fake one. I hate him because he wins. He always beat the Lions. No, he's a tool. He's running around. He's making money to just be mediocre. And really, he's a bridge quarterback for the Steelers. The Steelers signed him on a one-year deal to hopefully find a franchise quarterback that they haven't had since Big Ben retired. Aaron Rodgers is just someone to bring stability to the team. He's not the guy. He's annoying. But this will be a common theme, this next topic. Trouble with the police, lawsuits, cases. This is the first case of the day of, I believe, 3. Demondre Lenore was arrested on an obstruction charge. According to the LAPD, they saw a group of 3 that Lenore was in, and they all came out of a vehicle. In the vehicle, the police officer noticed a gun. The policeman asked for the keys, and the 3 started tossing the keys back and forth to each other and attempting to hide them from the police officer. They were playing monkey in the middle with a police officer. The police officer asked to see the keys, probably so he could see if the gun was registered, and they started throwing the keys around, playing keep away like a bunch of toddlers. Lenore he actually went to jail overnight. I believe he is out now. There will be a court case to decide what his punishment will be. Lenore signed a huge contract after a breakout year where he had 6 interceptions, but he might have to be given some of that big money he just earned to the state and a hefty fine. In the MLB, starting off with case number 2 of the day, the Wander Franco case. If you don't remember, in 2023, Wander Franco was accused of sexual relations with a 14-year-old girl. At the time, he was 21. The Rays placed Franco on the MLB's restricted list in August of 2023, then a week later put him on administrative leave. He had been out of the MLB since then. It wasn't until 2024 where the charges were formally pressed against Wander. Prosecutors desire a 5-year prison term for Wander Franco. Just recently, they found sufficient evidence of the relationship with a minor that went on for 4 months. In those 4 months, Franco would transfer large amounts of money to the mother's account so she would consent to the illegal relationship. When they raided the mom's house of the 14-year-old girl, they found $103,500 in total that was said to be delivered by Franco. As I mentioned earlier, the prosecutors are trying to get Franco 5 years in prison, but they also want to sentence the mom 10 years in prison for sex trafficking her daughter. An important note, this case is being held in the Dominican Republic, not America. They will also be going to a Dominican Republic jail depending on how the case plays out. The case did seem finalized Thursday. Announced Thursday night, Franco was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years in prison, and the mother was sentenced to 10 years in prison for trafficking her daughter and laundering money. As far as Franco's MLB career, he is not going to be paid as long as he is on the restricted list. He will have trouble getting a work visa to come to America after spending 2 years in jail, especially for the crime he had committed. And the MLB case is still in progress as they are looking into the rules and regulations that Franco broke. Wander Franco in a very, very bad spot, likely the end of his career. And I doubt he will get any of the money in that huge contract that he was offered. And really, he shouldn't get it. That's a terrible crime. And I'm glad that the mother was punished and accepting those bribes from Franco. But finally, the third and final lawsuit or legal drama. Fernando Tatis Jr. is suing Big League Advance for having him sign a contract at age 17 that would cost him $34 million due to the details within the contract. Tatis's lawsuit accuses the BLA of using predatory tactics to lure him into signing an investment deal that is actually an illegal loan in the state of California. Allegedly, the BLA they were unlicensed and pushed Tatis to invest in a loan that, like I mentioned, is illegal in California. Tatis's deal with the BLA gave him $2 million upfront and then 10% of his future earnings. After the $34 million contract, that means the BLA can take $34 million. That's how the math worked out, and that's where the $34 million came from. Tatis's goal in the lawsuit is to raise attention and make even more rules to get support for young players coming into the league and looking to make money to provide for their family. He said the players should not have to worry about being taken advantage of by shady businessmen. It's a really, really tough topic to hit on because there's so much that goes into it. It sounds like the BLA is very shady. They have a history, especially on the Padres. They have a history of making shady deals like this. And Fernando Tatis Jr. is attempting to bring attention to a very big problem in all sports. One is that businessmen will try and take advantage and make money off of a player. And that's shady. It seems like they're using a player, but that is their job, to make money and market a player. That is their job. But really the bigger thing that I think should be brought to light is that professional athletes struggle in knowing how to spend their money. It seems like an endless amount, and to a normal person, it may be an endless amount. But when you get a 17-year-old who maybe hasn't taken any financing classes, and he's offered this deal that gives him $2 million up front, which at that point seems like a ton of money, but it's peanuts compared to the 340 million that he's making right now. I'm glad that this issue attention is being brought to it. Some players need to be more aware, maybe even have business classes to take so that they know what deals to sign and what deals to pass. Also, there probably should be more regulations on businesses as far as what they can do and how they can market a player. It sounds like the BLA is very shady. But enough of the legal drama. Let's get into statistics. There could be an additional pitching stat on the way. It has been proven that a win-loss record does not accurately show how good a pitcher is. This can be seen with Nolan Ryan later in his career, and most apparently it is seen with Paul Skeens right now, who has a losing record, but one of the best ERAs in baseball. It's a well-known fact he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, but if you just look at his record, it definitely would not show that. There's just too many outside factors when it comes to a win-loss record in a pitcher, like how well your team hits, how your bullpen holds up. There's a ton of things that can go into it, but it's proven that a win-loss record does not show how good a pitcher is. However, there is a proposal to solve this problem and give pitchers a more accurate win-loss record. And this is by adding a win-loss record that is just a head-to-head stat against the starting pitchers for that game. Ideally, this would give them a level playing field. They would be pitching on the same night with the same weather, and their only opponent would be the other pitcher. Now, obviously, they will not be facing the same lineup, but it more accurately represents how effective you were as a starter that evening. The head-to-head matchup is very easy to keep score on. You just need to use the game score formula, which I'll go through a little bit of it. Each pitcher starts with 50 points. You add 1 point for each out recorded. You add 2 points for each inning completed after the fourth, 1 point for a strikeout, and you add 1 point for a strikeout. Now you remove points when there's a hit allowed, a run allowed, even whether it's earned or unearned, and for a walk. The game score formula has been around a long time. It was recently updated, so now pitchers start with 40 points. They add 2 points for each out recorded, and an additional point for every strikeout. Then you remove 2 points for a walk, 2 points for a hit, and 3 points for each run allowed, earned or unearned. Then you remove 6 points for a home run allowed. So this is it's really interesting. Stats have come so far, and really stats run baseball now. There's splits against righty and lefty hitters, how hitters do against pitchers. Everyone knows where the hot zone is for each batter, where they hit balls, what balls they hit the best, what speed range they hit the best. They know how many times a pitcher's fastball will rotate before it gets to home plate. They know which way they have a stat to measure everything, but the win-loss record was a huge gap. So to set up a win-loss record that is even more accurate and solely judges starting pitching and the matchup between starting pitchers, it's huge. It's just another way to measure pitchers. Obviously, ERA is still going to be the biggest one, but this game score formula, this new win-loss record based on head-to-head, let's take a look at Paul Skeens. He has a 4-6 win-loss record. If you use the head-to-head win-loss record with the game score formula, he is 11-5. So definitely much more accurate in representing how good a starting pitcher is. One last quick shout out in the MLB. Jacob deGrom has now pitched 13 straight games where he gave up 2 or less runs. So look out for Jacob deGrom. He is hot. That also ties his record for most consecutive games giving up 2 or less runs. Now, last but not least, we are heading into the UFC. Earlier this week, Stephen A. Smith voiced his opinion on Jon Jones. He said that Jon Jones retiring is a disservice to the fans. This is true because this is the fight that everyone wanted. Everyone wanted to see Jon Jones against Tom Aspinall. It really seems like the only interesting fight because both of those guys are just levels ahead of everyone else in the heavyweight division. Jones also has a history of making his own rules and fighting when he wants to, not necessarily when the UFC or when Dana White wants to. So this isn't just the frustration of this fight. It's also the frustration of prior fights like Daniel Cormier. Anytime he was busted for drug use where they had to delay the fight another few months. This is a reoccurring problem with Jon Jones where he delays fights. However, with all of that being said, if Jon Jones, he said that he lost the will to fight, and he said that fighting is not on his mind, and that if it gets back on his mind, he will go at it wholeheartedly. If that's truly how he feels, he isn't afraid of anyone, he just doesn't have the will to fight, then it's completely reasonable to retire. If you don't have the will to do something or the hunger to do it anymore, especially a sport like UFC or MMA, you've got to walk away. If you aren't 100% in it, you are going to just be dominated no matter how good you are. It doesn't matter. Also, he is, as of right now, he is the greatest of all time. There's almost no argument other than GSP that Jon Jones isn't the greatest of all time. He doesn't owe the fans of the UFC anything. He's beat Rampage Jackson, Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson without training. Then when he trained, he completely outclassed Gustafsson. Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, he's beat the best of the best, brought so many great fights on pay-per-view to the fans. He doesn't owe the fans or the UFC anything. So to say it's a disservice to the fans, you're forgetting about everything he's done for the fans. It's a touchy subject, and you never want a career like someone like Jon Jones to end, but that's just the cycle. The new pound-for-pound ranking with Jon Jones out, Islam Makhachev is number 1, Ilya Topuria is at 2, Merab's at 3, Tom Aspinall at 4, Alexandre Pantoja at 5, Muhammad Ankalaev at 6, DDP is at 7, Alex Pereira is at 8, Jack Della Maddalena is at 9, and Alexander Volkanovski is at 10. But this weekend, UFC 317 was live from Las Vegas. Alexandre Pantoja defended his belt for the 4th time and defeated Kai Kara France with a rear naked choke in the 3rd round. Will the next fight for Pantoja be Joshua Van? After Pantoja's fight, I'm blanking right now. Joe Rogan came into the interview to interview Pantoja. He was the interview guy on the night, not DC. Joe Rogan came in and asked Pantoja if Joshua Van would be the next fight. Joshua Van is averaging over 8 significant strikes a minute, and he upset earlier in the night the number 1 ranked contender with a very decisive unanimous decision. Joshua Van versus Alexandre Pantoja would be a very fun fight to watch. Both of the guys come out swinging. Pantoja, basically, as soon as each round starts, he sprints out at the guy and just sets an insane pace. Joshua Van does the same thing, and his striking is elite. That would be a huge next title fight in that division. That was the co-main event. At the main event, Topuria called his shot and knocked out Charles Oliveira in round 1. He knocked him out cold, like unconscious, with a right hook, and as he was falling, he just landed more and more shots. He is now a double champ at age 28. And that made me wonder, as soon as I watched that fight, I wondered, can Ilia Topuria become the GOAT over Jon Jones? Right as Jon Jones' career is brought to an end, it seems like Ilia Topuria is just getting started. He's the double champ at the top of his game. He's beat Alexander Volkanovski, dominated Charles Oliveira, finished Max Holloway, which is almost unheard of. I think the only other guy to do it was Dustin Poirier by submission. That was early in Max Holloway's career. Topuria's beat the best of the best. If he beats Islam Makhachev, I don't see how he would not be the greatest of all time. Topuria is putting up a case. He is either 18-0 or 19-0 now after defeating Charles Oliveira. He is putting up a serious case where he could be considered the greatest of all time. Even now you're wondering about it. And this topic comes up all the time. I'm probably speaking too soon. The same thing was said about Volkanovski before Ilia Topuria came in. The same thing was said about Kamaru Usman before he lost to Leon Edwards. But Usman is making a huge comeback that will be very interesting to watch. Topuria, I'll just set the greatest of all time thing to the side. Topuria is doing things that are just phenomenal to watch, and he should be appreciated while he's at the top of his game. So let's set aside the whole greatest of all time narrative and just admire what Ilia Topuria is doing. Then after he retires, we can decide if he's the greatest of all time or not. That should probably be done a lot more often in the sport of MMA, where you can lose all of your credit just from one punch. But an interesting thing happened after the Topuria fight. After he called a shot, knocked Oliveira out in round 1, Joe Rogan came into the octagon to do his post-fight interview, and it seemed like the route for Topuria would be beat Charles Oliveira, then beat Islam Makhachev, then he might even retire. He was very vocal about how when he gets to a point where he feels like there's nothing left to accomplish, he will retire. And I don't know how much more there would be for him to accomplish if he beats the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the form of Islam Makhachev. But in the interview, Joe Rogan asked him about his next fight, and with no shortage of vulgar language, Ilya Taporia called out Paddy Pimblett. And Paddy came into the octagon, and they just went at it. They were talking at the same time. You couldn't understand what they were saying. You just heard like insult after insult occasionally. They truly hate each other. There is no doubt about it. The interaction ended with a shove, and Ilya Taporia walked off. Now, what's interesting is Dana White was not happy about that interaction. He said he was vocal. He made it very clear that's not the next fight he had in mind. He also said if he was down there, they wouldn't have let Paddy Pimblett in the cage either. He was just pissed about that whole situation. But overall, it was a pretty good cherry on top to another great card put together by the UFC. That was UFC 317. And that was the Derek Smith Spiel Weekly Sports Update from June 24th to June 30th. Have a good week. This episode was brought to you by yours truly, Derek Smith, with help from the voice memos and Spotify Podcasters app. For more content like this, you can continue listening to the Derek Smith Spiel on Spotify, or you can listen on my YouTube channel at Derek Smith Stock 13. There you'll find my podcast and sports betting videos on top of that. If you're a fan of my sports betting videos, you can also see highlights of those on my TikTok account. You can find that by searching at SmithStock5 again on TikTok. Enjoy collecting cards? If so, check out my Collects account at Derek Smith Stock to get deals on quality cards. For updates on everything I mentioned, follow my Instagram account. You can find that by searching Derek Smith Stock 13 on Instagram. Not interested in sports? Then go to YouTube and watch Dylan Smith Outdoors YouTube channel. Search Dylan Smith Outdoors, where there are plenty of outdoor content videos, including hunting, catching, trail cam and tree stand setup, cooking, and plenty of laughs in between. Need your lawn sprayed? Whether it's weeds or insects, Greenwood Ecologics has you covered. If you need help making your lawn greener than your neighbors, call Greenwood Ecologics at 585-739-1610. I repeat, 585-739-1610. Finally, thank you for listening to this production of the Derek Smith Spiel. Every view or listener is appreciated. I'll catch you later.